It's Mandy from Mindset for Success. In the following interview, I'll be talking to Tim Adams from Tim Adams Specialty Coffee. Now, I've known Tim for many years, and his journey has been nothing short of amazing. And it's a real inspirational story. So one of the reasons I've interviewed Tim is I believe he has an incredible philosophy. Sometimes it's simple philosophy, yet it's the philosophy that I believe is truly important as necessary ingredients for success today. So go and get yourself a cup of coffee and tune in and really listen into some of the words that Tim says, some of the things that he believes and has helped him on his journey. So sit back and enjoy as I talk to Tim Adams from Tim Adams Specialty Coffee. Good, and welcome. I'm really excited today that I have Tim Adams from Tim Adams Specialty Coffee. Now, Tim, you had the most amazing journey. You've built an incredible business. I'm not going to tell people what you've done because that's what I'm interviewing you for. But many years ago, we worked together at the beginning of your journey. So tell me a little bit about where you are now and what you were doing when you first came and did a bit of coaching with me.
Yeah, thanks for interviewing, Mandy. It's been quite a long journey for me, but I've been quite fortunate over the years to have a good support network with family and friends around me. So it's made the journey a little bit easier. So at the moment, I currently own Tim Adams Specialty Coffee, which is a wholesale roasting company where we distribute to cafes and restaurants Australia-wide. We also have a espresso bar in Caloundra called Lambkin Lane, which is one of the best well-known espresso bars in the country.
Yep, I agree that.
Now, so that's another leg of the business. I'm also on the board of directors for a specialty coffee franchise and consult with a number of franchises within that business. And then we have just a training and consultancy sort of business where we train baristas and educate the market on specialty coffee and what we do.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's kind of where it's all led to. Back early when I started, I also had a mobile coffee van, which sort of launched me into my own business. I recently sold that last year, but I still do certain pop-up sort of gigs on a coffee cart as well. So, yeah. It's sort of diversified a little bit, but I quite like the industry that I'm in. So I generally like to touch every part of it and be involved some way, shape or form in each leg of the industry.
Yeah. So Tim, let's go back to the vision that you had years ago. And I think when you came to work with me in those days, you were in training, however you train them. Perhaps you can tell us for the Barista Championships.
Yeah, so Barista Championships was obviously where we first connected. Back then, I may have just had the coffee van. Do you remember that?
No, I don't think you'd got the coffee van in those days. It was all an amazing vision, I think.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think early days I was sort of throwing myself out there and being in competitions very early. With not a lot of knowledge behind me, I was probably a little bit unsure of whether I could actually succeed in barista competitions, which is where I first sort of came to and approached you to help me with that and get my mind in sort of the mindset where I could actually believe in what I could do. I think I had the ability and the knowledge to do it, but it was just a matter of connecting what I physically could do with mental preparation, and that was sort of the biggest help that I needed from yourself. So it definitely, and then once competition sort of finished, I then realised that I wanted to achieve goals outside of barista competitions. So after winning the Australian title in 2009, I then went on to win. I also won 2009 Queensland champion, 2010 Queensland champion, and 2013 Queensland champion. I then sort of realised how hard it was to actually win my Australian title back in 2009. So then it sort of, I guess I believed at that point that I needed guidance from myself to actually help set up that mindset to take into business as well as the baristas competition stage. And I think that sort of subconscious training that we sort of started doing definitely allowed me to, you know, get those thoughts in the right place and start to believe in myself and what I wanted to achieve. But also I think the biggest thing was visualization and visualizing what I wanted and then what I needed, and therefore it made it easier to achieve the goals that I wanted to do.
Yeah, and something I remember about you, Tim, we were talking a long time ago, athletes always use mental visualization, and so do highly driven people. And the one thing I remember at you is you were so committed. You seemed to have this incredible belief about yourself, which is so important. And you had a vision. You're very humble about your successes because you did incredibly well in the barista championships. What happened next? You said you were launching your business. So what was the next step in your vision after you won those championships?
Well, I didn't want to do things too quickly. So I was very structured in the steps that I wanted to take and the things that I wanted to achieve. And one of those things was having our own business, which is why we set up Tim Adams Specialty Coffee in 2010. Having an outlet to actually sell our coffee to people so they can taste and enjoy it. So that's where we had the mobile coffee van, which serviced, everyday coffee drinkers, which I think was an important stepping stone for me, because it took the prettiness of a cafe out of it, and all you're left with was myself as a barista and also the coffee and the customer. So there's not a lot of, there's not like there's an atmosphere around a coffee van. So you have to create that atmosphere purely based on quality and how you're interacting with customers. So that was a great way to learn about my coffee and what consumers wanted, but then also gave me the opportunity to talk to the customers more, because there was no cafe barriers. There was no counter, there was no tables in the road. There was just me and the coffee and the customer. So I was able to connect with customers very quickly and then therefore start to create the awareness of what I was doing in coffee. And then the other goal was to definitely start the roastery. That was on the list. Start a cafe was on the list, which was very much a big goal. Having multiple barista competitions and then being able to train someone to help educate another person, so be a coach. This was a long list of stuff that I wanted to achieve. I think I look back at my list. It was late last year because I upgraded my laptop, and I look back at the list that I kind of started when Katie and I first sort of began Tim Adams, and everything on that list was ticked pretty quickly.
Wow. And I think that's such a great example of having a vision, having goals, writing them down, visualizing them, focusing and having great belief. And now I believe today, Tim, you go overseas, you've got, you work overseas and do wonderful things with the coffee growers. Tell us a little bit about that.
I guess once I sort of looked at my list and realized that I'd, achieved things personally. And another thing was I really wanted to sort of give back to the community, not only locally on the Sunshine Coast, but in Queensland, Australia, and actually kind of try and make a difference and be as influential as possible to help a lot of people and also employ a lot of people in our industry from a specialty background. And a part of that was to then, once I believed I was achieving that, was, well, how can I give back more to the communities that help us here in Australia and also our networks? And that is the place where our coffee comes from. So we've done a lot of work in Honduras and Brazil over the last 2 to 3 years with our Chipola project, which is basically a project that I started with a number of other roasters. We've collaborated together, where we identify farms that need help, who have great potential but don't have any financial backing or money to then, look after their crops and see the potential of their crops. So Chipola is all about post-harvest techniques and giving money back to producers so they can look after their harvests before they actually start to develop cherries. And it's a very important part of the whole growing process. So we've been donating money back to a number of farms in Honduras, and we've just recently purchased a farm from the funds of that project in Honduras to help support the Lanza family, which is a family who own La Huerta in Honduras. So we've gone into partnership with them to help build a farm and create a training platform for baristas to go and learn about coffee from all around the world, and also to then help the Lanzas with their general cash flow. So buying a farm with them has enabled them to, and it's also an existing farm, so it's already producing cherries, which is also important, because if you start a farm from scratch, it takes 5 years to do cherries. So therefore you're waiting almost 3 to 4 years for an income to come in.
Wow.
So we're very fortunate to find a block or 2.5 manzanas, they call it. So that's the size of the land, where there was cherries growing wildly in a very beautiful part of the Santa Barbara Mountain in Honduras, where it's already producing cherries. So that means that for the Lanzas, it's instant cash flow, because they'll be producing cherries come February, March next year, which is great. So then that money will get reinvested back into the farm, and then reinvest back into their second farm, and we'll plant with them some geisha varietals, which is one of the most expensive varietals on the planet. So then that'll help obviously create and generate money for that family.
Wow, that's an incredible vision. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have a vision, but as we know, very few people fulfill their dreams and goals. They get stuck through fear and doubt. And I'm sure you've had challenges along the way, Tim. So I'm sure it would be helpful for other business owners. What would you say have been 3 of your biggest learnings along the way that might help other people?
I think learn to believe in yourself, but also don't follow in other people's footsteps. I think that's like, don't do something just because someone else has done it well. Like, have your vision and your goal to be what you truly want and believe in, because I think that's the most important part. You can give, like for example, you can give me a goal or a vision and say, go do that, Tim. But if it's not really coming from me, then there's no point in trying to do it, because I won't achieve it. So I think it has to be very personal about what you want to achieve and what you believe in. That's probably the biggest learning. The second thing is back yourself. So once you've made that decision, then back yourself, and don't give up until you've exhausted all your options on achieving that goal. And the third thing probably is be prepared for the fail as well. Be prepared to, like, sometimes you're not gonna win, or you're not gonna get there, but that doesn't mean it doesn't mean you can't try again or try something different. So sometimes you have to roll the dice a little bit. And I've definitely had a cafe that wasn't successful, that we were losing money on, and that's just all a part of it. But I learned from that, and I've managed to come out the other side and then learn from that mistake.
Yeah, and
so
that's awesome.
To make mistakes and then learn from it as well.
And I think that's so important. A lot of entrepreneurs, the mindset is all about fail fast and learn from the failure. And I think it's the way that people define failing. We all know that when people fail, they doubt themselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not meant to do this. But as you say, it all starts with such a clear vision and your why. We've all seen Simon Sinek's video about find your why. But so you've had your why, your vision, you've backed yourself. What else has been important in your journey of success?
Having respect for other people in the industry. Like in my industry, we were talking about this as a group this morning about who we felt were influential, like some of the the top 5 influential people in our industry, in Queensland and also Australia. And so I think respecting people who have done really good things within the industry that you're chasing, or the market you're trying to hit, or whatever it is, whatever sort of business you're running, and I think like working towards gaining respect in that industry. So I think respect's earned, it's not taken. I think I do value that statement, and I learned that from my military days. I do believe that there's a chain of command, and sometimes you have to wait your turn, but when it comes, the rewards come very thick and fast. So I think believing in the champions of your industry is something that I would really like to see more of, particularly this day and age.
And to me, that's an incredible mindset. Obviously, it's my speciality, but to have that
not aspiring to be them, but valuing some of the things that they do, because in this world there's so much competitive mindset and scarcity that I guess it's really important that you have that open mindset of collaboration and growth rather than scarcity.
And I mean, even like one of the Brazilian coffee farmers that we have a very good relationship with, he's an extremely knowledgeable individual, and one of his, you know, he's a qualified agronomist, and he's very, very clever. But one of the things that he believes in is that he should share his knowledge and share the information that he knows about coffee in order to then help everyone within his industry as well, and particularly from a growing point of view. So he's going to be qualified as basically a coffee grower instructor, where he'll go around the world and educate other growers on how to get the maximum potential out of their coffee farms. So I think, you know, being open to sharing information when you're at the top is also very important. But as you said before, don't be be humble. Like, don't be arrogant about your success either, because I don't think that doesn't wash well with people, and you can put people offside very quickly if you are arrogant about it. And I'm always here to, where possible, share the knowledge that I have and the information that I've learned amongst anyone who's kind of doing the right thing and wanting to do well.
And something that I pick up from the time I've known you and Katie is the humbleness and the authenticity that you come across with. I think that's so important, and it's not something that people can learn. You have to develop it, and you have to live, and your true colours come through. And I think that's really important. Tell me, Tim, in your travels and you know, your latest vision that you have and your overseas trips, what's something that really stands out as a special moment for you in the times that you've helped develop the project and helped the locals and been liaising with them?
I think the biggest thing is how lucky we are to live in the country we live in. That, you know, visiting countries where, you know, the roads aren't great, the quality of life isn't great. You know, they don't have the technology that we have. I'm very lucky, but also just understanding that sometimes that's okay for them to live that way and not to change who they are, because all they need is you know, to be looked after and be ripped off like anyone else. But what they do with their money and how they live their lives, I think it is up to them. And sometimes just accepting that that's how they live is okay. And you know, not to try and change who they are as people, just to try and work with them and make sure that they have better lives for themselves and that they are happy with what they're doing. But I think just the sheer sort of the biggest eye on it was just the sheer beauty of a country like Honduras. It's a very special place, and just the diversity of it is amazing. I'm very lucky that I've been able to, you know, have the ability to travel to some beautiful parts of the world. I was just recently in Panama, and that just mind-blowing experience.
Look, I think travel for so many people, I've been very blessed to have done many travels. I haven't been to Honduras or Panama, but my experience, similar to yours, is the people, the life's different, but being very grateful for what we have and totally respecting their life, having open and collaborative mindset. That's great. And it's, I believe that it seems to be the way of the new entrepreneurs, you know, wanting to give things back. We've seen so much corporate greed and lack of trust that I think this is the time in the world to shine your light, be authentic, be true, have a big vision. And I'm sure that's made a huge part of your success. And I'm wondering too, we haven't mentioned your family because it's not to do with your business, but I believe that there's so many other people out there that are juggling families, and you have 2 children and a wife, you live here. How do you manage to juggle all your work as well as having time? I'm sure you make time for your family as well, Tim.
Yeah, that's a really good question. How do I manage it? I've got great people in my team that definitely helps. Katie's been very supportive about what I wanted to achieve over a number of years, and she stood by me through the good and the bad times. But I think just having a partner who kind of has a very similar mindset and really understands, and we've known each other since, you know, high school, so that's been a big advantage. We actually get each other really well. And I think having that good connection at home is obviously has allowed me to have that growth within the business and been able to develop the business. But I think having children then is, even though we are busy, it's giving me more reason to create what I need to create. So I'm being a good leader and role model to my children, and then they can be proud of what I'm achieving, and also they're learning that as well, and learning about, okay, Dad's out the door at 5 a.m. most mornings, and he's home, you know, as you know, after we get home from school kind of scenario. So I'm still working very hard within the business, but it's I must admit it, I have sort of taken a step aside the last sort of 12 to 18 months so Katie can learn what she wanted to do, and that was to be a yoga instructor. So now she's onto her level 2 of that, and being able to support her with that has been quite rewarding as well. And sort of, you know, creating opportunities for her to fulfill what she wanted to fulfill.
And that's fantastic. And I guess it's another sign of total success, which is every part of our life. I know Katie, she's an amazing lady, and I think you make such an incredible team. And that is so much part of it all as well, honouring and helping each other. Because quite often relationships can get unbalanced with too much work and not enough play. So it sounds like you have a pretty good mix of work and family, and I'm sure 2 children keep you real and down to earth. But is there a particular philosophy that you live your life by, Tim, or a few words of wisdom that you use to, you know, live your life by, that you'd like to share?
Oh, geez. Just to be integral, I guess. I think, and put your money where your mouth is. You know, a lot of people just talk about what they want to do and what they're going to do, but don't actually get off their ass and do it. I think, and so doing things with integral values is very important, and something that I've always tried to do, and be open and honest and have transparency with your customers and what you're trying to do. And honesty is the best policy at the end of the day. I think that's crucial, and don't be greedy, and because it'll come back to bite you. So I think some of those things maybe, but as a general philosophy, just, you know, be happy with what you're doing, and do things the right way, so you know you can sleep at night and you know, and get out of bed on the right foot. That's probably it. I don't have sort of many things that I sort of look at. It's just being a good human.
And you know what? It's in so many ways, you know, it's so obvious, but there are so few people that truly embrace it. It's almost like coming back to simplicity. What are we here for? What life is all about, and remembering some fundamental core values.
And not complicating it. Yeah, not overcomplicating things.
And one, just on, you have a lot of staff, and I know you empower them fantastically. What would be, I've just thrown this one on you now, what might be a key for other people that have teams and staff? Because there's often major challenges in businesses, and I help a few teams. What would be something you might share about the success that you have with having such incredible people and great teamwork, Tim?
Well, one of the things that sort of I know Katie and I take to the whole kind of, you know, having a team around you, is that it is a team. I think getting in and being a part of that team, like everyone has their own role, and I definitely have what I need to do in my role, but treating them as equal, if that makes sense, like actually showing them that you are a leader is probably one of the biggest things that I try and do. I don't sort of, I be the boss when I have to, but I definitely make sure that they know I'm in the trenches with them. I'm working as hard as them and side by side with them. And if they've got any problems, they can come and talk to me about it. But then, you know, treating them like family is just treat them nicely and treat them like family. Just because they may make a mistake, I've always, you know, I make mistakes as well. So I think you need to, you know, that's why there's rubbers on the end of pencils, so you can erase them. Erase mistakes.
You're right. Everyone makes mistakes.
So looking after the team, but hiring. It is challenging, but then hiring people who have an invested interest in the industry as well is also key.
Cool.
But we'll definitely contribute more at origin. I think that's probably what we're sort of striving for. More so, having more ethically sourced and traded coffee within this country is probably a goal to make that aware to everyone. Yeah.
And I guess coffee drinking is a huge in Australia, and it's not going to go away. We all love our coffee. Where do you see even more coffee shops opening up? There are more people that are trying to emulate perhaps what you do.
Yeah.
How do you see things moving?
I do see a saturation point coming with coffee shops. I think that there'll be a point where there's too many, and potentially there'll be a lot that won't succeed based on saturation point. I think there's enough, like the education on coffee drinking and you know the romance and the beauty behind drinking coffee and the flavors are there, and everyone does want a part of it. Probably more so, people are just going to start drinking more and more coffee. I think that's where we're heading.
That's a good thing. Yeah, great. And by the way, Tim, must ask you this one. What is your favourite coffee?
Good question.
How do you drink it? Yeah, how do you like drinking your coffee? Might be better.
I drink it in all sorts, but I generally drink long black is probably one of my favourites, just to experience the true flavour of all the coffees that, you know, the terroir of the origin that the coffee's come from really shines through as a black coffee. So yeah, long black for me. Yeah.
Cool, good. Well, make sure everybody, when you're in Caloundra, which is where I live, you go down to Lambkin Lane. They make fantastic coffee. And I know out on the coast, there are some cafes that stock your Tim Adams coffee. And I believe in there, it's more than Queensland now. Is that right? Your coffee?
Yeah, we've got shops in New South Wales, Victoria, and yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
so, yeah, and I think the great thing to know is when you're drinking a Tim Adams coffee, I love your coffee. I sit there and I feel very proud because having known you and seen your journey for so many years, and what an incredible person and what a great team you and Katie make with all your other business partners and teams. I think we need to clone you, Tim, and we need to be able to take you into other businesses in Australia so that Australia can start, you know, standing proud and being the amazing place that we are. We need many more leaders like you. So it's an incredible journey. And the other question I'd love to ask you, someone asked me this the other day, and it's always a challenging one, but what piece of advice now might you tell your 20-year-old self or late teenager?
I'd probably tell my 20-year-old, look, you're not going to play cricket for Australia, so give up.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes we have to change our dreams. So.
Yeah, maybe starting, because that was always my dream. I wanted to play cricket professionally.
Oh, that's right.
I just didn't have it. Yeah.
Well,
so I probably would go back and say, hey, look, just get into coffee earlier would be what I would have said to myself.
And, you know, sorry that the English cricket team or the Australian cricket team, sorry, I'm originally from England, maybe they would have taken you over there. They missed out on an amazing leader, but I think the coffee industry and the Sunshine Coast in particular is very honoured and very privileged to have you in the coffee business. And I know there are many people just like me that love drinking your coffee. We brought the breakfast group, the business breakfast group that I'm into, your premises the other day, which was the catalyst for this because, you know, I hadn't realised how much you'd grown and evolved and what an amazing story it is. So,
thank you. I mean, a lot of people don't see, because it's always been a challenge for people that knew me when I was a barista champion. So to be able to create a brand now that people recognize as Tim Adams Specialty Coffee has been a really interesting sort of journey, because it's shifted away from Tim Adams being a person to Tim Adams being a brand. So it's quite funny when people realize that I'm still a person. So it's nice to hear that, you know, people like yourself who've seen me as a person and develop that brand and where it's heading now. And I guess you're still the memory that we know behind the brand, but you're right, you want to build a brand of a business. But I still think of you when I drink your coffee. So that's great.
Good. Well, look, thanks, Tim. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I'm sure lots of people will get some real gold gems from here. And what you say, your philosophy in life in many ways is so simple, but it's so profound, because people get so complicated with chasing this and beating themselves up, not believing in themselves is something I see all the time. And then we're surrounded, unfortunately, with an element in society where there's a lack of trust and corporate greed, and it seems to taint so many people's vision. So it's really inspiring to come back and meet someone that works from heart, with integrity, with business sense. And I'm sure you've had challenges along the way, but as you say, you're getting in the trenches with your team so that you can get down. I'm sure you'd sweep the floor if you had to, and honor and respect other people. Simple, but so important. And it's awesome what you're doing. You're giving back.
Thank you.
In overseas as well, Tim. So thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to the next chapter and to having having a coffee soon, one of yours.
Been a pleasure. Thanks, Mandy.
Okay, thanks.